Breakfast Show here on Faith FM. And coming up, we're going to have an interview with Michael Cook from Creation Ministries International. He's going to be talking to us about astronautics. So do you know what astronautics is? Michael's going to explain everything to us. But before we do so, just a reminder that we have an incredible book that we're giving away today. It's called Radical Evidence. What is the truth about Jesus? So with the testimonies of Muslims, ancestor worshippers, Jews, Shiite Muslims, Orthodox Muslims, and people that have had real encounters with Jesus. If you'd like to get to know their stories, plus some people in the Bible as well. And if you'd like to know what the Bible says about Jesus and what do people say about Jesus, well, this book is going to be such a blessing to you. You can get it for free. 0491-064-669. Just text us with our text word today, #radical, and it will be given unto you. Michael, good morning to you. It's great to have you with us on the show this morning.
Yes, good morning to everyone again. It's great to be back again, and just found new technology, new way to connect, and you're certainly sounding loud and clear at my end, so I trust I'm coming across clearly to you. But yeah, it's great to be able to join this morning from New Zealand. 3 hours ahead of you now with daylight savings, so you'll catch up next week, I believe.
That's right. Look, it's great to have you. We can definitely hear you loud and clear. And I was hoping that you would be around Sydney because they're having the 76th International Astronautical Congress in Sydney. It's a pretty big, I think it's like the biggest space-related congress in the world. But I actually wanted to ask you, Michael, what's that? What is that word, astronautical? I know what an astronaut is, but I'm not too sure if I understand what astronautical means. Can you give us, some background into that?
Yes, astronautical, obviously we talk about aeronautical and aerospace, that sort of thing, but the astronautical is really the combining of the idea of space exploration, space technology, space management, and so on. So I'm passionate about space. I love astronomy, and as a child seeing the Apollo 11 landing, as a child at school and so on. So yeah, it was just the whole thing about rockets and space really appealed to me. So yeah, it's a fascinating subject, and it's really not so much about astrobiology and trying to find life in outer space. It's more about managing rocket launches, satellites, travel in space and safety in space, and also using space equipment to monitor and to help things on Earth. So it's around technology and around nations coming together to work together to ensure that space travel is safe and efficient for everyone.
Okay, wow, there you go. So it's how to go around and how to go about in space. Michael, so what are some of the things in this area that you find fascinating, particularly the things that have a touch of intelligent design that is pointing towards God's creation? Can you run us through about some of these things?
Well, of course, as we know from Scripture, that the heavens declare the glory of God, as it speaks about in Psalms, and we are in a beautiful, amazing universe, aren't we? And here we are on our small little blue dot. But Earth, especially, is just unique in all the universe, I really believe. And it talks in Isaiah 45:18 about he who fashioned and made the earth, he founded it. He did not create it to be empty, but formed it to be inhabited. So Earth is very special, and we're privileged to be given a planet like this, even though it's been marred by sin and it's been damaged by, the effects of the curse, but it's still an amazing place. But God's also given us intelligence and a mandate to explore and to learn about his creation. And so space is an extension of that. Being able to leave planet Earth and to go into space and travel further afield to view things and to explore and to develop things is something that fits within our mandate as made in God's image, with intelligence and capability to really be able to do that.
Yeah, which is quite amazing. And I think that a lot of people have this idea here that, look, if you're a Christian, you should be opposed to scientific advance, or God was not a Christian, but like God is opposed to that, knowledge. That there's even some people that equated knowledge with sin. Do you think that that has any bearing on reality?
Absolutely not. And I think God had given us, that mandate to study. The whole mandate in Genesis was to multiply and to fill the earth and basically to develop it and to use it, to learn about it and enjoy it. And so I think God has given us that. And many of the early founding fathers of the modern scientific revolution were Bible-believing Christians, and like Johannes Kepler, who came up with the laws of planetary motion, he said, I'm thinking God's thoughts after him. And because God's a God of order, and therefore we should be able to do science because the universe is orderly, it follows laws that are not fickle. It's not like Zeus is going to change his mind or whatever. So we can do science from a biblical point of view and enjoy God's creation, but not worship the creation. It's important to love God, but just to study his creation in a respectful way and give the honor to him.
That's fascinating. And look, you mentioned Johannes Kepler, and this whole idea of as well of how the planets move around. I'm wondering, is there any when we look into how planets orbit each other and in our solar system, do we find any evidence for the existence of God? Do we find any evidence of fine tuning, or do you think that these systems could, as well, might as well have just, been generated, through millions and millions and billions of years by random chance?
Again, absolutely not. And we've got some really interesting articles on our website, creation.com, which your listeners will be very aware of. And it's just talking about the whole solar system. My good colleague, Dr. Mark Harwood, he's been very involved in science for many years, and he's written brilliant articles about the design of the solar system, how where we are in that Goldilocks position, from distance from the sun. We've got a large moon compared to the size of Earth. It's just the right distance, gives us our tides. But even for me, it's fascinating that a solar eclipse, it just so happens that Earth and the sun are 400 times different in distance, but also 400 times different in diameter. So it means we can observe a solar eclipse now. Is that just a lucky coincidence, or is it God just saying, oh, enjoy, you can study this and do that? So I think the hallmarks of God's design are so clear in the solar system and in the universe.
Absolutely. And look, one question that I always had, I don't know, Michael, if you ever thought about this one, but it appears to me like, what happens if like we just disappear with one planet in our solar system? Let's say, let's get rid of Jupiter for instance. Would that have any impact on us here, or do we need really all these planets for some kind of gravitational equilibrium, or they're just there more for decoration?
I think both is actually, we can enjoy them. They're very different, aren't they? The whole thing of the gas giants and the smaller planets, the rocky planets and so on. But Jupiter's an interesting one. It's the largest planet in our solar system. And it actually, because of its stronger gravitational field, it obviously the balance between the planets is important, but also there's many times where incoming space objects that may potentially hit us have been absorbed or intercepted by Jupiter. And you may remember the Shoemaker-Levy comet that was actually crashed into Jupiter. It wasn't heading for us, but it shows you that Jupiter can absorb and deflect things. So yeah, I think even that is not coincidence. It's something that is part of the overall design of the solar system.
What happens if an asteroid hits Jupiter? Because Jupiter is a gassy planet, right? So does it have a solid surface at all at it, or like would the asteroid just like go into one side of the planet and just leaves on the other one? What happens there? Do we know?
Yes, well, again, I'm a little bit, because it was a few years ago, but yes, certainly it's a gas giant, but because of the huge gravitational forces in Jupiter, the actual core, I believe, is basically almost like hydrogen becomes metallic. But certainly the outside is just gas, and the Shoemaker-Levy just smacked into the planet and sank into it. But it left a mark on there that was actually visible for a long time. So wow. It's basically like a big ball of compressed gas, and it just basically went straight into it.
That's amazing. So this is it, International Astronautical Congress. Actually, on Friday, they're going to have an open day for children as well. There's going to be Legos and all kinds of talks about space. I think it's going to be very inspirational. Just want to move the topic a little bit from the outer space to the inner oceans here, because one question that I had, and I know that you offered to talk a little bit about it. During the flood, would there be any impact on fishes during that time, or for the fishes, the flood would just be a non-event? Can you give us how did what was the impact on fishes, and particularly how did plants also survived the flood, or they were all transported as seeds into the Noah's Ark? Have you ever, what do people say about that? People that study the implications of the flood.
As we know, the flood was a catastrophic event, unprecedented in all of history, that completely reshaped Earth, and it would have been a hugely disruptive time of huge uplifting, earthquakes, volcanic action, erosion, sedimentation, uplift, and so on. So the whole planet was completely trashed, basically. But yeah, so the Bible clearly talks about what God brought to Noah was air-breathing, land-dwelling animals and birds. So there wouldn't have been fish tanks on the ark, or dolphins and whales didn't have to be on the ark. So creatures that are aquatic would have obviously died, by the millions as well. And the fossil record is actually up to 95% marine creatures. So there would have been huge amounts of loss. But despite the turmoil and the turbidity and the changing salt levels in the flood waters, many creatures would have survived in the waters. And there would have been huge amounts of floating vegetation on the surface as all the vegetation was ripped up. Much of it was buried and became coal and gas and oil. But there would have been huge, massive rafts of floating vegetation, that would have contained seeds and so on, and insects, etc. And of course, the ark would have had seeds as food and so on. So there would have been multiple ways that plants and marine creatures would have survived and began to repopulate afterwards.
Yeah, I remember that once I was reading an article about how they found fossils of marine animals on Mount Everest. And
that's right. Yeah.
To me, it's like, oh, wow, this like, if this is not a very, very interesting evidence pointing to the flood, I do not know what it is.
Well, that's a really interesting one. You mentioned that because both people who believe in millions of years in evolution would say, and we would agree, that what is now Mount Everest would have been under the ocean at one point, and there's a cap of limestone on top of Mount Everest even today, which is basically very filled with fossils of fish, of shellfish and so on. But that's how we both, evolution and creation, would say, yes, that's expected. But when you look at the rates of erosion, even over the 50 or so million years supposedly that Mount Everest has been exposed as it's been uplifting, that would have gone millions of years ago. So the fact we still have that cap of limestone on top shouts strongly that it's not millions of years old.
Wow, that's amazing. And Michael, what else do you think is coming up, from recent discoveries? We were mentioning about James Webb's telescope. I think I've seen a photograph recently about this string of galaxies. Have you seen that one?
Yes, I have. And it's interesting how many of the predictions made by creationists that the James Webb Space Telescope there was a number of predictions that have been proved to be correct. And yet these strings of galaxies and these very mature, well-formed galaxies, very, very distant from us, belies the Big Bang explanation. They're too mature and too developed to be early in the Big Bang.
Absolutely. And look, not only we can see the evidences for the veracity of the scriptures in regards to its account of the origins, but what a stunning picture. I think it's one of the most beautiful pictures of space that I have ever seen. I don't know if it's going to be publicized more, but it almost looks like a string of probably more beautiful than any precious kind of a jewelry or artifact that I have ever seen. And by the way, radio friend, if you would like to see this picture and if you want to know what I'm talking about, just text me here to 0491 064 669 and I'll send it to you. It's basically, it looks like a bead of jewels, but each jewel is actually a galaxy with trillions and trillions of stars contained inside of each one of them. It's quite fascinating, and each galaxy has its own shape, its own colors, its own format. It's something that if you wasn't taking a picture of it, nobody would believe it existed.
Yes, it's incredible. The James Webb Space Telescope is a stunning example of some brilliant people, brilliant operational science and engineering to be able to launch that, to get it into the position it is in, to have the heat shields and the technology on there. And yes, it dwarfs any of the previous space telescopes, including the Hubble, with resolution and quality of the images are just stunning, aren't they? It's absolutely I love the technology. Very, very clever people who put that together.
Oh, absolutely. Michael, thank you so much for today's interview. I'm actually just wondering, can you let us know again, how can we find more information about the fascinating discoveries that confirm the biblical account of the origins?
Okay, yeah, so please go to our website, creation.com, and just search for things like James Webb Space Telescope or fish in the flood or any topics you've got of interest. We've got 1,000 of articles on there. We've got YouTube channels, social media outlets, and with different things on it. So all for free. So please use our search engine to find the answers to the questions you have. And so all things we've talked about today, we cover on our website, creation.com. And of course, Creation Magazine is a brilliant resource for your family. Encourage you to subscribe to Creation Magazine as well.
Absolutely. What a great resource. Thank you so much, Michael. We're looking forward to
so
talk to you again next time.
You're listening to The Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.